Previous video we discussed about sound has energy. Now in this video we will discuss about the different types of musical instruments. Can you give the examples of the musical instruments like a flute, guitar, sitar, veena, mridangam, dholak, tabla? All these are the musical instruments. The sound produced from all these instruments are not seen. We get different kinds of sounds from different types of musical instruments. Now in all these musical instruments they're producing music or the sound. So which part of this instrument is responsible for the production of sound, that we'll learn now in this video. First, we'll classify the musical instruments. We'll classify the types of musical instruments. Here we have the four types of musical instruments. We have the stringed instruments, membrane instruments, wind instruments, and the vibrating plates instruments. So the musical instruments are mainly how many types? Four types. They are the stringed, membrane, wind, and vibrating plates. So coming to the first one, the stringed instruments. In that, what are the examples of these? So guitar, violin, sitar, veena. All these are comes under stringed instruments. In guitar, violin, sitar, veena, and all that, strings are fixed, and we have one key to loose and tight that strings. So whatever the pitch we want, like that you can lose it and tight it, that strings in that instrument, in these instruments. So here in all these instruments they produce a sound due to the vibrations in the metal wires, due to the vibrations produced in the strings. So that strings are nothing but it is made up of metals. Due to these metal wires, the metal wires are vibrating and they produce sound. Next, when you pluck that strings, either with they have some instruments like that, or with the fingers, then metal wires start vibrating. Due to that, these instruments produce different kinds of pleasant sounds. Now coming to the membrane instruments. Here membrane instruments comes under drum, tabla, dholak, mridangam. All these are the membrane instruments. Here in all these instruments, some skin, animal's skin is stretched on those instruments. For example, if you take a tabla, in that tabla are drums also there, like Vinayak Chauthi and all festivals, they're using the drums. So in that, that instrument is covered, in that the layer is covered with the skin, animal's skin. So while they are playing music in that drum, tabla, or whatever this type of membrane instrument, sometimes they heat that membrane, they heat it. When it is when it gains heat, then it produces loud sound. Did you observe or not? So that dappu, we can call it as dappu also. So the dappu, sometimes it will not produce loud sound. So that dappu person, that persons, they heat that membrane. So when they heat it, it expands and it becomes tight, not expands, it becomes tight, that membrane becomes tight, and it produces more vibrations and it produces sounds also. It produces loud sounds. So these are all these are comes under membrane instruments. In all these membrane instruments, the vibrations are caused due to the membrane, means that membrane start vibrating. Due to that, they produce sounds. Now coming to the wind instruments. In that, flute, shehnai, trumpet, organ, pipe, all these are comes under wind instruments. Wind instruments means When you blow air, suppose if you take the flute, when you blow air, the air goes, and when you are playing that flute, you are playing by closing the fingers and opening the fingers, because here some air columns are there. So when you close it and open it, due to that, the length of the air column in the flute changes. Due to that, accordingly, they can produce, we can get the sound in from the flute. Means the when you close it, open it, this air columns, in that flute completely it is hollow, means the gap is filled by the air. So when you blow air, then what happens? The air inside the air particles start vibrating. Due to that, it producing, that flute producing sound. Not only the flute, your shehnai also, so we'll call it as sannai. And trumpet through mouth, and organ pipe. All these they are used. Okay, organ pipe, all these are wind instruments. So in all these instrument, inside it is hollow body, and it is filled with air, and these when you blow air, the air particle inside, they start vibrating. Due to that vibration, they produce sound. So these are the wind instruments. So wind instruments, which part is vibrating here? Which part is vibrating? The air particles, the flute holes are open. Here it is not given. So in that, all the particles, the air particles vibrate. Due to that, where they are producing sound. Next, the last one is vibrating plates instruments. Vibrating plates instruments. We have to take the metal plates. For example, bhajanas and kirtanas we are taking, and we are doing like this. Hare Rama, like something we are using this. So that plates, we'll call it as cymbals. So they are made up of metal plates. When you what is that? By using these metal plates, when you force, what we'll call that? See these symbols. And Jaltarang is nothing but they're taking the different metal cups or glasses. In that, they will fill the different quantity of water and all that, and they will take one metal stick, and with that they are they're making to touch those water bowls or the water glasses to produce sounds. That will call it as Jaltarang. And xylophone. This is the xylophone. These are all comes under the vibrating plates instrument. So these are the 4 types of musical instrument. And from this, they used to ask one question, 4 marks question. Earlier they asked to draw the musical instrument. Draw the musical instrument. The types of musical instruments. So for that, in our textbook, it is given. In our textbook, it is given as sitar, flute, tabla, and this is the, what is this? This is harmonium. So you have to draw those figures, and you have to name it. If they ask, you have to name the vibrating part of those of that musical instrument.